Today we are going to talk about emotional intelligence, something that is more important and useful for us than we think. My name is Clara Parker and I'm a psychologist of Harvard University. To start with, in the traditional school, a child was considered as intelligent if he or she was able to pass the subjects. Recently, an intelligent child is the one that can get high marks in the test. The intelligence quotient has become a reference point for this ideal, and this argument is based on the positive relationships that exist between a student's intelligence quotient and their academic performance. But intelligence does not guarantee success in our daily lives. The intelligence quotient does not contribute to our emotional balance, our mental health, or our happiness. Other emotional and social skills are responsible for this. What is it? Emotional intelligence is the ability to identify and manage your own emotions and the emotion of the others. It is generally said to include three skills. 1. The emotional awareness. 2. The ability to harness emotions and apply them to tasks like thinking and problem solving. And 3. The ability to manage emotion, which includes regulating your own emotions and cheering up or calming down other people. Today, in this talk, we have two guests that are going to explain us more aspects of the emotional intelligence. They have focused their studies in these authors.
The skill model of Mayer and Salovey focuses exclusively on the emotional processing of information and the study of abilities related to that procedure. From this theory, emotional intelligence is defined as the ability of people to understand and perceive feelings in an appropriately precise way, the ability to assimilate and understand them adequately, and the ability to regulate and modify our mood or others' mood. From the skill model, emotional intelligence involves four major components: perception and emotional expression, to recognize that we are aware of our emotions and to identify what we feel and to be able to give a verbal tag. Emotional facilitation, ability to generate feelings that facilitate thinking. Emotional understanding, to integrate what we feel within our thinking and to know how to consider the complexity of emotional changes. And emotional regulation, directing and managing both positive and negative emotions. Emotional intelligence as a skill can be understood either as a personality trait or part of a person's character. We observe an individual who has as a characteristic of his personality to be extroverted. Can we predict the degree of personal or impersonal emotional intelligence that he possesses? Not really. Another thing is that there is some interaction between emotional intelligence and personality, just as it exists with abstract intelligence. Will a person use and develop his or her intelligence with a high or low intelligence coefficient? In this sense, people with a certain personality type will more or less easily develop their emotional abilities. After all, a person is not the sum of their parts, but a fusion that coexists in an integrated way.
According to Goleman, emotional intelligence is defined as the ability to identify, assess, and control one's own emotions, the emotions of others, and that of groups. Goleman took the concept of emotional intelligence from an article by Mayer and Salovey from the year 1990. Also, in his book, he gives a quite different approach. In the 1900s, even though traditional definitions of intelligence emphasized cognitive aspects such as memory and problem solving, several influential researchers in the intelligence field of study has begun to recognize the importance of going beyond traditional types of intelligence. As early as 1920, for instance, E.L. Thorndike described social intelligence as the skill of understanding and managing others. Howard Gardner in 1983 described the idea of multiple intelligence, in which interpersonal intelligence and intrapersonal intelligence helped explain performance outcomes. The first use of the term emotional intelligence is often attributed to a study of emotion, Developing Emotional Intelligence from 1985 by Wayne Payne. However, prior to this, the term emotional intelligence had appeared in Lerner. Stalin Grandpace also put forward an emotional intelligence model, followed by Salovey and Mayer, and Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman model focused on emotional intelligence as a wide array of competencies and skills that drive leadership performance and consist of 5 areas. Self-awareness, know one's emotions, strengths, weakness, drives, values, and goals, and recognize their impact on others while using good feelings to guide decisions. Self-regulation, manage or redirect one's disruptive emotions and impulses and adapt to changing circumstances. Social skill, manage other emotions to move people in the desired directions. Empathy, recognize, understand, and consider other people's feelings, especially when making decisions. Motivation, motivate oneself to achieve for the sake of achievement. To Goleman, emotional competencies are not innate talents, but rather learned capabilities that must be worked on and can be developed to achieve understanding performance. Goleman believes that individuals are born with a general emotional intelligence that determines their potential for learning emotional competencies.
After these authors, the last one is Getzu Barwan. According to him, emotional intelligence is the ability to tune emotions, understand them, and take necessary actions. For example, we are faced with someone who shows emotional intelligence. When the person who has diagnosed with diabetes identifies the feeling that produces such news, like for example, can be sadness, fear, hope, among others. Understand the reason for such emotion, for instance, fear of dying, leaving his wife alone, etc., and taking the necessary measures, like improve their eating habits, take actions that minimize the risk to cope with the disease. If we contrast the definitions that Barwan and Goleman give of this concept, we can see that both agree that being a skill or ability, we can continue to increase it throughout our life. We can continue learning and developing skills such as empathy, self-motivation, self-control, emotional self-knowledge, and various ability to relate to other people.
Why this method should be instituted in the lessons. Alan Mortiboyce is Professor of Educational Development at Birmingham City University. He argues that the students should be taught with more emotional intelligence. Apart from that, by watching some experiments, we know that teaching of emotional intelligence can increase the self-esteem and assertiveness in students. Moreover, it's important to implement emotional intelligence methods because it teaches the student to recognize and manage their emotions, like stress, aggression, and so on, and use it in their interpersonal relationship. Finally, we can say that this method contributes to decreasing educational and health problems, positive feeling, and mutual respect in students.
How it will be implanted? Success in teaching seems to require considerable capacities in emotional competencies. Teaching professional needs social emotional competencies to be able to build resilience to adversity in the field, to self-monitor performance, and to regulate emotions through both reactive and proactive coping. Teachers need to be self-aware of abilities and skills required for the range of roles, responsibilities, and demands of their work. They need to be able to seek support from educational leaders and managers when they self-perceived weakness in these abilities and skills. Teachers also need social-emotional competencies to be able to effectively manage and develop students' emotional development. Now I'm going to give you some examples about emotional intelligence, and Clara Carper is going to help me. According to Alan Mortiboyce, we can see an example of his experience. He said, "I've been involved in teacher training for many years and I've done a lot of teaching observations. On many occasions, the teacher was an expert in the subject and had all the technical stuff in place. but there was something missing. They weren't paying attention to how the group was feeling, or doing simple things like using people's names. So the value of their expertise in the subject and their pedagogical skills was reduced.
On the other hand, Stud and Malouf taught emotional intelligence skills to students in a college transition course and compared them to students who complete a challenge transition course not focused on emotional intelligence. Results were reported in terms of improvement in these methods, skills and retention. For instance, over 97% of the students in emotional intelligence focus sessions were retained at the end of the year compared with 86% of the students in the non-emotional intelligence session, a statistically significant difference. Okay, we have arrived to the end of the talk and we have to thank to the guests that have come to help us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.